Welcome back, everyone. It is wonderful to see you all. I see we did hit the wonderful number of 20, so yay, we're back. Maybe just to rehash for the video, because I know that a few people did write me to say that they wouldn't be able to make it today. Just to validate the thought of what do I say, and just the need to be able to have that question be answered. And I do realize that it's there. And ultimately, what we say comes from what we've heard said to us. And there's a lot of power that we actually bring into the conversation when we let go of the need that we're going to be directing it and bringing ourselves into it. When we just bring ourselves as a conversational partner, a motivational conversational partner, then we can actually have a great deal of power in how and where the direction of the conversation goes, and really empower the person that we're speaking with to really think very deeply and to have a conversation with their own ideas about where they want to go, and to help them find their own path for change. That's what these utterances are going to be all about. So I want to actually jump right into getting a few examples rolling. And have we done the why do you choose the hair that you choose example? Have we ever done that with this group? No? Oh, maybe with Wolfram we have. But you've, I think, been to a few other things. Okay, so what I'm going to do right now is let's double check in first. Does everybody have scrap paper in front of them? Because we're going to be using scrap paper pretty profusely this time. So what we're going to be doing with the scrap paper is we're going to be writing down, we're going to be picture ourselves saying something, and we're going to be writing it down. So this way we're going to be able to empower participation for everybody in this group, and also participation for people who aren't able to come today and who just kind of look at the recordings. And then we'll do a little bit of debriefing with some of the examples afterwards. And I'm going to also put into place the what I like to refer to as the voluntold pass system, which is, you've heard voluntold. So I'll volunteer somebody as a participant, and then I welcome every single person that I volunteer to volunpass. So if I choose you, and you wish to pass, then I welcome that and invite it. So please pass if you wish to. And then I'll ask, tell, pass somebody else. Let's ask John. John, would you be willing to be a volunteer for a quick little back and forth here?
Yes.
Okay, so what John and I are going to do is I'm just going to ask John a question. Then John is going to respond to me. And then we're all going to write down a statement where we're going to be reflecting back what we heard John say. Okay, but we're not going to do the simple reflection, which is just, the clear cut, paraphrase, very simple. We're going to try to use our insight into what John is saying to understand a deeper level of what he's doing, and then we're going to reflect that back. We're going to reflect the more profound or deeper insight version back to John. Okay, so does everybody understand the rules of the engagement and what we're writing on our paper? I got some. So that's why this is more like practice round. So if you're like, that's perfect. That's a great place to be. So we'll just do a very simple thing. And I want you to just tone on your curiosity and understand what John is saying. And I want you to write down what he's saying, but in your own words, using that deep insight. And then we're going to take a few examples. And then it'll make more sense as we start doing it. Okay, so John, thank you for volunteering.
You're welcome.
Let me actually lock you in here so I can see you better. It's weird, won't let me lock it. Anyway, whatever. Okay, so I'll just see you like this. So John, can you tell me, why do you choose the hair that you choose? As you styled it?
My hair?
Yeah.
What did I?
Yeah.
I just went, it's always kind of like that. I like to have it short, and then it grows a little. And this is kind of a natural thing. It falls like this. And I don't think much about it, as I say.
Okay, thank you. So now let's all write our statement back. So thank you, John. Okay, so it looks like everyone's done. So John, if you could come off mute again, let's just kind of go forward a little bit. So I'm gonna say a reflection back to you, and then we're gonna do some other stuff. And so then let's just converse for a sec. So it's important for you to have your hair be natural and to have its natural shine.
Yes. Well, shine, I don't know. It's, yeah, maybe. Naturally is true, yes. The shine, I'm not busy with that. But if you say it's a shine, I'm good.
Okay, so now let's pause again. So what I was just doing here was a bit of a demonstration, which is one of the biggest questions that people always have, which is, what if I send something back and I'm wrong? Okay, so we've just done a demonstration. John did exactly what I wanted him to do, which is I sent back something to John that sounded genuine, but I knew was wrong. It was not the most accurate reflection of how John feels about his hair. Now, what did John do when I told him something genuinely that was incorrect? What did he do?
He turned away.
Well, he toned away. So tell me a little bit more about how he interacted. Like what was he doing in our conversation? Did he let me go on with this? James?
Yeah, he smiled. He was quite comfortable that you had your own interpretation. It didn't fluster him. It wasn't something that he was interested in owning that he believed about himself. But it was okay for you to have your own impression of what his hair looked like.
Yeah, so so he didn't feel like I was oppressing him. So my genuineness came through. He didn't feel like I was telling him something. Now, did he accept it or did he correct me?
I think he avoided that because I think he said, if you say it shines, that's fine for me. It's not there.
Yeah. So, and then when we fill in the rest of the blank there, it's like, you know, that's fine, you know, for you. I'm glad that you're happy with my shine, you know, but it's like, but I don't care about my shine. You could hear that. You could hear that in his voice. I don't give a squat about the shine. Like, I'm glad that you like the shine, but like, it's not me. And this was supposed to be a question about what I like about my hair. So you could hear in his response that he was correcting it. Okay, so that's I think the lesson here, and it's one of the biggest questions that I always get, which is, what if I use my intuition to try to understand their deeper meaning, and that's what I send back, and I send it back wrong? It's okay. It's okay to be wrong. If you send it genuinely, John corrects you. And you just saw it demonstrated. Like, I didn't know John was going to be here today. We didn't script this. That's just the way it happens. It happens like clockwork. If we were to do it again, it would happen again. I've done this live probably like 20 times, and I've never not been corrected. So I'm very, very confident that this activity works exactly like that. Okay, so now let's actually take a look at some of your reflections, which were better than mine. So who would like to, I'll do my Volin Ask Pass thing. Henrik, would you like to share or pass?
So my attempt was, so you let your hair be as it would like to be, which to my own ear sounds sort of vaguely, it sounds vaguely critical, unfortunately, but it wasn't meant to be.
So now, okay, so now whether it's critical or not will show up in the tone. So if you would like to actually just look at John and just say it the way that you would say it, and don't say
okay.
you're going to, just actually share it with John and see what John says.
Mm. So you basically let your hair be the way it would like to be.
Basically, yes. I trust the hairdresser.
Okay, so what we just saw was another round of the correction. It's just like, it was close. Well, it was certainly closer than mine, way closer. What feels like the difference here was you were saying that like there's a thought process that like that John is choosing to let his hair be the way that it is, but John is then correcting it and saying, actually, I just don't really think about it much. You know, I just, the only person thinking about the hair is the hairdresser, and like they do the thinking and I just do the whatever. So how about that, John? Did that summarize what you were correcting it, or did we still miss it?
No, that's pretty much it. Of course, I mean, I like to, I'm a human being, so I want to be the nice version of myself. But with my hair, I go to the hairdresser, and it takes 2 or 3 months, and then I go back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there's an expert there, and that's the expert kind of guides the whole process and deals with it for you. So that's so we're hearing the waves of reflection. We're getting to what is the actual core and meat of this. Okay, so why don't we go to another example? Let's go to one that's a little bit more relevant to our core application of what we'd like to do with motivational interviewing. Let's say we're going to go visit our elected representative. And in this situation, we're going to be talking with an aide. So I'm going to actually play the role of the aide, and I'd like somebody to just come in and start a conversation with me. So I'm going to ask somebody to interview me, and I'm going to be the aide that you're talking to. So Tina, would you like to accept being voluntold, or would you like to pass?
I can give it a go, but I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to say.
Oh, sure. Well, you know what? Just come in and just say whatever, and we all get to practice together. It's going to be fun. Yay! So you are a CCL representative, and
Okay.
I am in the elected representative's office. I'm the aide, and you knew you were actually coming in to meet with me and not the elected representative. So it was planned that you're going to be meeting with me. And I'm the energy and environment aide for the office. And so you're just going to come in and bring in, whatever you'd like to bring in, and start how you'd like to normally start. And we're gonna go like just 1 minute, because I want everybody to be able to write a reflection based off of my first or second thing that I say. Okay? All right, so I realize I'm putting you on the spot, Tina. I have faith in you.
Definitely.
Okay, here, why don't we name me too? My name would be, I'm Robert Smith.
Okay. Okay, hi, I'm Tina. I phoned you last week. We have an appointment today. I'm really happy to be here. Are you Rob Smith, the aide to?
Yeah, I'm Rob Smith.
I'm really glad we managed to get together today. I've been looking forward to this. We've come to talk about carbon fee and dividend today, as I'm sure you're aware of.
Yeah, I mean, I'm aware, like, we've got our public position on this, and I just don't know that I have, much else to say about it other than the public position that we've shared that's available on the site. Okay, so let's pause there. And what I'd like everybody to do is just write the reflection based off of what you heard me say. Use that intuition. Go deeper. Reflect back what I just said. Okay, so it looks like everyone, for the most part, is done writing. So why don't we actually do a little bit of practice runs right here. So I'm going to invite a few people to unmute and to share their thing with me. Now, when you share it with me, I want you to step into the role where Tina was, and I want us to just actually have like a single go back and forth. Now, while we're having our go back and forth, I want everybody to observe how I respond. Okay, and I want you to say, do I kind of become less resistant? Do I become more resistant? Just observe what is happening when I do this, because I'm real playing. I am being Robert Smith, you know. Kind of funny that I chose the lead singer of The Cure as the name, but anyway. Okay, so Wolfram, would you like to go or pass?
Go.
Okay.
So sorry for clarification. I now respond. I continue the conversation where Tina left it, or?
Yes, and if you need to take, 10 seconds, 30 seconds, however long you need to kind of put yourself into Tina's position in the conversation and really just feel it. I want you to be able to present the tone of your reflection the way that you would actually say it. So like whenever we do these practice runs, don't ever go with well, what I would say is blank, because then the tone is off and then we don't even know what we're talking about, because the tone is even more important than the words. So take some time, and then when you're ready, then share your reflection.
I think there's that's absolutely fine. I'm still very looking forward to having this conversation. I'm not here today to convince you to take another position. I'm curious to hear your thoughts about our policy and start a conversation with you.
Well, I mean, okay. So, well, I guess we can start by reviewing, what's on the on a public position. So, blank, blank, blank. Okay, so what did you see happen here? So for this, let's not do Volanask, Pask, or whatever. Let's just do popcorn style. So how did I change? Did I soften at all?
A little.
A little. Okay, so I got some no's, I got some a little, some yeses. So really what I was feeling when Wolfram was going through that, at first I was like, oh, but then there was this, I felt like my resistance was being validated. And that I didn't need to repeat my resistance. Like I felt that, and Wolfram kind of backed off a little bit and said, I'm not here to try to convince you of something, and it's just sort of like, well, aren't you though? Was partly there, but that was less prominent than tentatively dipping my toe in the water to just have a conversation. That's what it felt like for me, which is like, all right, well, I guess we'll do this. So that's what it was feeling. So what Wolfram just demonstrated was something that we call rolling with resistance, which is a good complex reflection that validates where I'm at when I'm feeling resistant. What it does is it stops me from having to repeat my resistance statement. Now, and if my resistance doesn't get heard or validated, then I feel like I want to repeat it. And the more that I repeat my resistance, the more resistant I become. And also, not only do I become more resistant to the topic, I also develop discord with you as a person. And that discord can also be a source of resistance that's very, very profound. So you could be like, the speed of light is, whatever is the speed of light. And if I am in discord with you, then I'd be like, yeah, no. We're not flying with that. It's like, well, but it's a standard of space-time. It is what it is. Yeah, but no. Like, you know, if it's flying around a black hole, it's different. So get out of here. You know, it's like I'll find some way to just prove it to myself that you're wrong, even though that probably is still false. I'll be like, but it bends it and it changes it and you're wrong. I'll find a way to just, I'd rather be wrong than let you be right. So so what Wolfram did was he rolled with resistance and he diffused what could have been a discordant environment where we started fighting back and forth with each other. So it's a very strong utterance, and definitely something that I would say is like role model territory. Very well done. Would anybody else like to try something? And if you're not in love with your example or not in love with what you wrote down, then that's even better. Gina, would you like to go? Or you can pass.
Sorry, I was just saying well done to Wolfram. Yes, sorry, I misinterpreted. I had reflected on what I thought Rob Smith was saying the first time through, which was that he appeared to be not particularly interested, not aggressively against the policy, but almost quite close to patronizing, in as much as you've got your policy and no other policy is going to be listened to particularly. Very politely done, and I'm sure we've all met those. I mean, they're the kind of standard beginnings that most of us come to. So I'm not quite sure whether that's what this exercise was, but it made me think one underneath. It was quite good.
Yeah, so ultimately what's interesting is that, you know, hearing somebody do something that sounds good or sounds right, it's just sort of like, well, you know, was what I heard good enough? Or was what I like reflected back good enough? And it's like, you know, I mean, everybody's reflection is always going to be different. So that's just something that that we have to keep in mind as we do this reflection practice, is that what we hear is always going to be different and unique to us, which is why I can't actually give you, you know, like I can't tell you what to say. But now let's actually take a step back and let's go into some nuts and bolts of how to say it. Okay, so we're going to go into a little bit more sort of like not presentation mode, but just like let's go through a few things here. What I want to do here is I want to describe to you the concept of a double-sided reflection. And we're going to introduce the concept of a spectrum of like change and sustain. So what I'd like everybody to do is I'd like you to draw a line on your paper. We're going to create a spectrum together. Now on the left-hand side, so let's actually keep it horizontal line. So I probably should have said that earlier. Somebody might have went vertical. Oops. Just so that way we're all on the same page. Okay, so horizontal line. On the left-hand side, we're going to put a general feeling, state, words that feels like it's resistant to change. It's staying the same. Anything that stays the same. So I feel cold, or I don't know how, or oh boy, where's the time? Or oh geez, where's the money to deal with all of that? Who's going to do that? Okay, all of those things, when you practice your listening, they felt like they were more resistant. Could you hear and feel that resistance? Okay, so those things are more over on the left-hand side. And then on the right-hand side is going to be all of the emotions, feelings, words, statements, actions that are associated with change. Well, I know a person. Well, there might be a way to, finagle this somehow. What do you think my role in that might be? What's the pathway forward? Ask not what you can do for your country, ask what your country can do for you. Oh wait, I think that's supposed to be reversed. Okay, so all of those things, those felt changey wangey. Like if you gut check them, you could hear and feel the change in there. There was something that felt like it was positive motion forward. Okay, so now, so here's our spectrum. So now what we want to do is we want to always listen and try to understand where things are in this change spectrum. And if we hear things that are on the left-hand side, we want our reflection to be more along the lines of what Wolfram was doing, which is this type of a empathic validation rolling with resistance. So a reflective statement where we're basically hearing what they said, we're listening very deeply, we're trying to intuit the meaning, and we're sending it back. In this case, when we're on the left-hand side, we want to be very, very empathic. That's very, very important for us to get the empathy, because that is the thing that powers me being able to let go and kind of not generate discord in our connection. And this has actually been studied in research. We know that an expression of empathy, when people are specifically at their most resistant, is one of the most powerful things you can do in an entire session. And the correlation that this has to change is incredibly high. A single utterance expressing empathy in the face of resistance is unbelievably powerful. And the research, if you're interested for that, is her name is Henny Westra, and she's out of York University, right here in Toronto, actually. Okay, so on the right-hand side, this is our change side. So this is where we want to end people. We want to send back this positive feeling of emotion and help them to build on these thoughts. So when we're on the left-hand side, it's an expression of empathy just to diffuse their need to say more of it. On the right-hand side, we're using our curiosity because we want more of it. So when we express curiosity, then we have a tendency to get more of those types of things. Oh, Louisa, it's totally fine, by the way. Just saw your message. Okay, so now let's actually write our recipe for the double-sided reflection. Now, there's literally a bank of many, many different types of reflections, and it gets all very jargony. But I really want to introduce you to this concept of a double-sided reflection first. I love them. They are my favorite types of reflections. And I think that they have, once you can do a double-sided reflection, I feel like the rest of all of the other reflections kind of just fall into place. And we're kind of starting at the hardest one, but once you grasp it, it's like, wow, that thing is amazing. Okay, so a few more things we have to do to kind of get you ready for this double-sided reflection. Let's start with human short-term memory. Human short-term memory is give or take 16 seconds. So that is going to play a very, very important role in why and how this double-sided reflection works. So I'm going to, I think the easiest way for me to do a double-sided reflection is for me to demonstrate, and then we'll actually describe how to do it. Let's do it that way. Okay, so Christian, can I ask for your participation as a volunteer, or would you like to pass?
Sure.
Okay, I'm just going to ask you like two different sides of something, and I'd just like you to, explain what it's like for you on either side of that. So can you tell me things that you don't like about public transit?
Well, the biggest issue that I don't like is being on a cold, wet platform.
So
That's
yeah, so there's not a lot of things that you don't like, but if there's something.
Well, usually if you're on a cold, wet platform, that means that the trains don't run and you have to stay there for a couple of hours.
Oh, okay. So there's the uncomfortableness of the platform, but maybe even more important than the uncomfortableness of the platform is actually just like the long wait.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Is there anything else that you'd like to say as far as like, things that you don't like about the transit?
Well, of course, at the moment that you have to sit next to people within a close range in a corona environment, but that's
Yeah,
hopefully
so
a temporary issue.
Yeah, so there's the whole like COVID closeness, and, that type of social distancing becomes a bit more difficult. Okay, so how about what are things that you like about public transit?
Not having to use your time driving, but being able to spend it on
Yeah, so
other stuff.
like when you're driving, your effort has to be like here, but when you're being driven, then your effort can be, you can look out the window, read a book, there's a number of different activities you can participate in, and it feels like you're getting your time back.
Exactly.
What about, is there anything else that, really resonates about what you like about the transit?
Well, I'm no, not so much.
Not so much. So that's really,
no.
that's your big one, which is the getting the time back.
That's my big one. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So, so I mean, if we were to summarize this, like, on one hand, there's the dampness and just sort of like kind of a feeling a bit of uncomfortableness and the waiting, and then when it finally does show up, there's there's COVID, and of course that's a bit of a temporary concern, but it's still a concern right now. And then on the other hand, if you do take transit, granted, if there isn't like that big long wait, it almost feels like you can get some of that time back, or maybe even a big chunk of that time back, because you're not just spending it driving, you can actually participate in your environment, and that is actually pleasing to be able to have that time for yourself. Okay, so what I just did there was a double-sided reflection. Did you kind of see what the double-sided reflection was as I did it? How did I present that back? What did you see?
It felt like a very direct reflection of what I said. So.
Okay, so it was direct. It was summarizing. It felt like simple paraphrasing, but there was, so what made it double-sided?
I haven't got a clue.
Okay, so we had reasons why you probably won't take public transit, which are the things that you didn't like about public transit. So if you're not going to take public transit, we've already got a list. We know why you're not going to take public transit. You gave us the list. If you were to take public transit, we have one reason. So realistically, like, you're probably not going to be taking transit because we could all hear that, like, you had 3 reasons. There was a little bit more visceral reasons on one side, and there was only one reason when we asked if there were other things for it. You came up with not so much. So ultimately, like, by preponderance of the evidence, you're probably not really going to be interested in public transit right now. So we might, and we were able to hear that. Even still, we can send back the double-sided reflection, excuse me, in the direction of positivity. It doesn't really work as well here because your positives were so small. You had 3 negatives that if we were to rate them just emotionally, just from the tone that you felt, it felt like they were all sort of like mid to higher range reasons about like why you didn't like this. And then your positive reason. What's that? Was that accurate?
No, that's not the way I, because the 3 are incidental reasons.
Okay.
And not structural reasons, and the positive is a structural positive. So if I get a chance and I don't see a risk of getting locked on a platform, then so it's my default is using probably the bad experience comes from having the default of using the public transport.
So, well, thank you for that correction then. And so let's actually unpack now what the double-sided reflection like is, which is what we are doing is we're listening for both sides of that spectrum, like reasons against, reasons for. And what we're doing is we're sending them back in a reflection format. These are the other person's reasons. We're sending back the reasons against first. Has to be first. Like I said, I can tell you how, I can't tell you what to say. So if you're going to use a double-sided reflection, you have to say the reasons not to make the change first. And second is the reasons to make the change. Now, we were talking before that human short-term memory is very important in this. Well, 16 seconds, by time you actually validate the reasons against, if you have more than one reason for, like let's say 2 reasons for, that makes it the double-sided reflection a bit more effective, then you can paraphrase those 2. By the time you get done paraphrasing the reasons for, the only thing that they'll remember from the reasons against is a chemical memory feeling of validation that they don't need to repeat it because they've been validated, they've let it go, they've moved on. So it's no longer in their short-term memory, and you're leaving them with their positive reasons in their short-term memory. So then, as long as there is a change target, then you know which side to end on. So in this case, I was ending on the taking more public transportation as the change target. So I ended with the thing that was more directed of like, the more we think about our time that we get back when we take public transit, then the more we want to take public transit, because it's like, well, what book might I read? Oh, well, I could read, the whole Ontario Foundation series from Isaac Asimov. It'd be like, wow, that'd be really fun. When would I have time to do that otherwise? It's like, oh, geez, I wouldn't. So then the reason for taking public transit becomes I could experience, this great work of science fiction or something like that. Now that becomes my new reason. Okay, so that's the double-sided reflection. So let's actually try again with double-sided reflections and give you guys the chance to write down and practice some double-sided reflections with me. So would we like to have a, let's see, I'm gonna volunteer ask someone. Jenny, would you like to give me a brief interview? Or would you like to pass?
I can't be the first one to pass, so I'll do it. Yeah.
Jenny, I'm so proud of you for taking the plunge. Yay! Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna give you the same replica of what I just did with Christian, which is something that we refer to as the decisional balance, which is you choose a change target in your mind for me, that you're going to have that conversation with me about that change target, and let me know what it is, and in the conversation or whatever, and I want you to ask about my reasons why I'm not going to move towards that change target, validate where I'm at, and then I want you to discover and draw out my reasons why I would pursue the change target and validate those. And then I want you to just keep like some very basic notes. Actually, everybody keeps some very basic notes about what are my negatives and what are my positives. What is on the left-hand side of the spectrum, what's on the right-hand side of the spectrum. And as you do that, then when we've drawn them all out, then we're going to take a pause, and everyone's going to use that time to write a double-sided reflection, or maybe even multiple versions of a double-sided reflection. And then we're going to do a full round robin, so everybody gets a chance to, either share or pass their double-sided reflection. Okay? How are you feeling, Jenny?
Okay, but thanks. But so can what I'm asking you about, does it need to be directly related to like carbon fee and dividend, or could it be some other environmental issue? Should I be carrying on the same track that the others have done as a conversation?
You can, what's interesting is that the MI skills are very, very transferable. Like I got into the MINT community, which is the network of motivational interviewing trainers and that I'm a member of. I got into that community by doing a motivational interview about smoking. I'd never done a motivational interview with a smoker before, ever. And I did it at a level that was adequate to like, bring me into this community. Use whichever change target you feel that you would like to use. If you want me to be an elected representative, I can be, or I can just be me.
Okay.
And we can do that.
Okay. Okay, well, I'll stick to the same character then, that you're still the elected representative aides.
Okay, are we restarting or are we picking up where we left off?
Gosh, I'll just maybe carry on.
Carry on, you got it. Awesome, okay. Let's do it. So I just showed you some, I pulled out my laptop and I spun it around and I said, well, there's the web page. So, I mean, I guess we can look at that. And, we looked at it for a second and then we're back on and it's you.
Okay. Okay, Robert, thanks. I mean, that makes that position pretty clear. And I get where you're coming from. So thank you for that. while I'm here, I'd be interested to get your views of something else. It's a local issue, sort of tied in. Just wondering what you thought about the application to drill for oil in Balcombe. That seems to be coming up again. I don't know where you live, but I imagine sort of somewhere in the area. And I just wondered what your thoughts were about that.
Drilling for oil. So, actually, let's take a pause. So, if you can draw out sort of like one side, which is the reasons why I want to drill, and then afterwards draw out the reasons why I don't want to drill.
Okay.
So if you can ask me my reasons to drill. So I'm guessing your change target is less drilling.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So do your best to non-judgmentally draw out all of my reasons, or well, my biggest reasons for why I want to drill, and demonstrate that you're not going to get tilted by me wanting to drill. And then when you do that, you'll have the opportunity to actually discover my reasons of why I might not want to drill. Okay?
Yeah. Oh, am I supposed to say something else now? Sorry.
Oh, yeah. So, and if you're ever not sure, then just, it's totally cool to be direct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, my dog has just decided to go and distract by going to the door, but I'm going to ignore him and focus on this. So sorry, but I don't know at the moment how you feel about it, do I?
No, you don't. So, and you may need to take a few seconds to actually get yourself emotionally ready. Do you feel how hard it is to get yourself ready to do the utterances when you feel like sort of like not emotionally in the right position?
Yeah.
This is where we have to do. So please take 30 seconds to just say, breathe, and generate that feeling of curiosity towards me. You're curious. You're curious for why I would want to drill oil. Why do I want to do this?
Okay. Yeah. So, Robert, something I would be very interested to just talk to you about today while I'm here and while we've got a bit of time, if you do have some time to talk to me about it, is the application for drilling for oil locally on the High Weald, because my understanding is that you've been taking an interest and an involvement in that, and I've seen that it's something that you've given a bit of support to, and I just wonder if if we could look at that really.
Yeah. One of the reasons that that we're interested in that is we've been approached by a number of developers, and those developers, I mean, of course, with COVID, there's quite a bit of financial stressors, and we had a number of building sites fall through in the loss of credit, and we really need to be able to do something with that land. These landowners really need to be able to do that because the land's just, laying fallow right now. So we really wanted to do that, and why not get some energy development happening, right here locally, and get, focusing on, the energy independence of this community and our country.
Yes, I think that's laudable. I mean, that you know, to be on the lookout for the landowners and to be aware of their situation. And of course, the idea of energy independence is really, really attractive. I'm wondering whether you've considered that there's some very strong opposition locally and how that plays out.
Yeah, so we have heard, you know, some resistance, and you know, of course, we'll do our environmental impact studies, and you know, before any permits are issued, we really need to make sure that the environmental impact studies are done. You know, so that is something that we're making sure needs to be there, like you know, protecting the local watershed is very important. Um, and we need to make sure that, you know, the drilling is done right. And so, yeah, so there is that environmental impact. So I think that that's one of the biggest things that's most important. I've seen some environmental groups, you know, really pushing for the environmental impact study. And I think that that's actually already begun.
Okay, great. I mean, thank you for that, because, you know, obviously you recognize there is deep concern, and the fact that the environmental impact studies are foremost in the procedure is really good to hear. So thank you very much for sharing that, Robert. I think, you know, energy independence is something that is a highly desirable goal. So I appreciate, you know, your honesty and your viewpoint, and thank you for sharing it with me.
Okay, so let's take a pause and let's actually all try our double-sided reflection. So let's think about our negative, you know, our like stay the same side, our drill for oil side, and our not drill for oil side. And then let's figure out how we send this back in a double-sided reflection. Okay, so go a few more seconds here. Okay, so let's try a round robin and give multiple people the opportunity to just share their double-sided reflections. And let's just listen to what different people had as examples. So James, would you like to share?
Pass.
Thank you. Maddie, would you like to share?
Okay, yes. Yes, so I hear that on one side, you really think that this could be a good thing for the local community, and you could get new money in and new jobs in, and that would be important to you. But on the other side, you have you can see that's important that this will not split the community, because you are aware about that some people are against it, and you are also a bit concerned about that it might be hard to drill without getting problem with the water, and that is that correct?
So there we go. And I mean, it's not I heard double-sided reflection. Let's actually, Nigel, would you like to share yours?
Yes, I'll have a go. So I hear you're keen to develop the land and have energy development in this area, but I'm also hearing that you want it done in an environmentally sound way, and that it's done by proper procedures so that that can be done.
That sounds like a double-sided reflection to me. Christian, would you like to go?
Sure. So I hear that you want to see energy independence for the region and take into account the economic situation of the landowner and try and boost our economy here. But I'm happy to hear that you want to wait for the impact studies and that you want to make sure that the watersheds are protected and we don't have any drilling accidents in the region.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you've double-sided it. Now, you've noticed that it's two parts, right? Like everybody's got like, there's on one hand, other hand, this, but that, or there's some dividing line, and then we move into the second part. Bridget, would you like to try yours?
Well, I have got a feeling that almost everything has been said at the moment. What I was still wondering was, can I add some ideas of my own to it? Like, you rightly say that energy independence is an important concern, which I totally agree with, as we have been dependent too long on undemocratic regimes, for instance. It's something that I would be tempted to say, but I'm not sure whether adding ideas to yours, but what you have said is good.
Okay, so this is a wonderful point in question, which is, what do we, now that we're into utterances, what do we do with ourselves? Okay, so our first and second session was the emotional balance, and and like figuring out how to keep ourselves narrow and what we feel. The second day was listening so that we could send back different versions of what they said. Okay, so different versions of what they said, which are basically reflections, are going to make up the majority of our motivational interview. If we do have things that are burning inside of us that we can't let go, well, we definitely want to be able to check whether we're still in the motivational interviewing spirit, whether we're still in the MI band of emotions, if we have those feelings. So that's point number one. But point number two is, there is a way to actually give advice or to bring those things in that are burning in us that is a little bit like less damaging to the conversation. It's still not like best in class, but at least it allows us to kind of resolve the thing that's screaming in our head. And so this is something that we refer to as what we call a persuade with permission. So in a previous thing, we actually drew the spectrum where we had like confront and persuade on one side, and like reflection and affirmation and stuff on the other side. I'm pretty sure we drew that up in a previous session, right? Okay, so persuade was on the left-hand side with the stuff that draws out resistance. Persuade with permission is still on the left-hand side, but closer to the center. So it doesn't do like the same level of like damage to the conversation as something like a persuade will. So this is my recipe for advice giving that I'd like to offer to you, and then you can use it, not use it, change it, do what you want with it. And it's yours to kind of just take for whatever you would like. So it's a basically 4-step process. Step 1 is seek permission. Ask permission to bring in your idea. Step 2 is assess if you have the permission. Oh, well, I have an idea. I would really like to share it. Okay. Permission was not given. Do you, like, they said okay, but you hold the tone of voice. That okay was hell no. That's what that okay was. That okay came with an eye roll and it just, yeah. Okay, so we've got it. So that's why the assessed permission is there, because usually it's not a flat out no in the word. Usually it's a no in the tone. Okay, so with the assessing permission, we're assessing permission not with the word. We're assessing permission with the tone. We get permission from the tone only. Okay, so third step, share the advice that you want to share. So whatever it is that you want to share, if you can keep it a little bit briefer, that's better. The more mights and like might words that you use help a lot. Okay, and then the fourth step is emphasizing autonomy. So how might something like that work for you? Or, you know, I mean, that's just an idea. I don't know if there's any part about that that works, you know, change it up, or, you know, it's yours, take it for what you want. But what do you think? Does that work in any way for you at all? You know, what do you think? So that got a little bit wordy, but it was still communicating kind of like at a lower level, right? It's kind of like, you know, when a dog goes up to its master and it goes like this, you know, and it's like supplicating. It's like, yes, I've given this advice, but I'm going to make sure at the end of the advice that I position myself like below you, that like I'm offering up this advice and you may or may not take it. If you want to change it and make it your own, you can. It's yours. And that is the spirit of the advice giving. And so when we have something that we want to share in a motivational interview, that's a good way to kind of do it without breaking yourself out of the MI band of emotions. So do we want to, so I think we're good with practicing double-sided reflections, because I usually go until we hit a point where somebody says, oh, well, I've kind of said it all or whatever. So that was a good point to kind of conclude the round robin. Your advice that you were going to give could be the greatest thing you could have ever asked for in this conversation.
Because you can reinforce their autonomy and their value in making that decision by supporting it. No?
Wonderful. Absolutely. you can demonstrate to them that you're willing to back down when they don't want something, even if they say one of those like, okay, you know, where you're going to be willing, even if it's like this tedious yes that's really a no, that you care about them so much that you are willing to let go of the thing that you wanted to share just so that they didn't have to hear the thing that they didn't want to hear. When you back down from giving that advice, you have created an unprecedented level of engagement with them that you have never had before. The appreciation for not inflicting your advice upon them, because that's what it feels like to them. When they give you that tedious yes, no thing, they don't want it. Whatever it is that you want to say to them is going to create discord, resistance, and they're not going to like you. So when you back off from doing the thing that they didn't want to do, instead of going down the path of them being sure that they don't like you, instead they will like you. It's wonderful. So there you go. You've been given a gift.
How do you say that then?
Yeah, I was going to say, give us an example of how you say that. I want to hear that too, rather than you putting us on the spot. We'd like to hear yours.
Okay, so Christian, can I Volin ask past you for something?
Sure.
So Christian, would it be okay if I like just shared some of my stories about like public transit in Toronto?
Yes, sure. Go ahead.
Okay, so it seems like actually like maybe you're not quite so interested actually in my stories, and you want to know what? That's okay. Like so maybe we should just talk about something else. Like what do you think we should talk about instead? Because it seems like maybe it's kind of not into that, and that's cool. What do you
No,
think?
it's not a topic I'm really into. So I'm more in fast cars and loud.
You know, so I mean, it's interesting. I mean, to think about. I like because I know that there's a lot of people who actually do like, you know, like fast cars, and it's not something that I even like know about. Like I've never seen like a NASCAR. So like fast car, is that like NASCAR? Like what does that mean to you when you say fast car?
Well, of course, the fastest cars are the electric cars. So
Oh, I
Touché.
mean, that took a tone that I wasn't even expecting. I mean, like, so I don't drive. I don't really know anything about cars at all. So like, I know nothing about any of this. So like, electric cars are faster than like, you know, the oil burning or the gas burning cars or whatever.
oh yeah, definitely.
Wow. So like, is that like the Tesla or whatever? Like, or is that like, I don't know. Okay. So anyway, so let's pause.
So, yeah.
So
we moved away from
yeah, you didn't want to
tedious subject. Yeah.
You didn't want to talk about it, and it's just like, okay, so we're not going to talk about it.
Yeah. But it's still difficult. You see you're struggling a bit to find common ground after being rejected quite bluntly by me.
There was interestingly enough, like I didn't actually I didn't struggle. So you just did a reflection right now, and now I feel the need to correct, right? Do you feel that? So like I have this need to correct because I wasn't struggling. I actually just generated a feeling of curiosity towards like, the idea of fast cars and NASCAR. That is a first for me. I've never been curious about NASCAR in my entire life. That was a unique experience in this lifetime. So and you know, and I just said, you want to know what? And surprisingly, when I let myself be curious, you surprised me.
Mhm.
Right? Like you did, like there was genuine surprise that I was experiencing about like, you know, what is the fastest car? And I like, so there we go. So that is a little bit of pulling ourselves back. You have to be willing to kind of let it go. And it takes a little bit of practice to be able to let yourself go. Have you ever like looked at like Pavlov's dog, or who knows about Pavlov's dog? Give me a like a little hand sign if you know Pavlov's dog. Okay, so about 80-90% or so. Oh, maybe even more. Okay, so Pavlov's dog, like, okay, so you feed it food, it salivates. You feed it food, it salivates. Then you feed it food and you ring a bell, it salivates. You feed it food, it ring a bell, it salivates. Then you ring a bell, but you don't feed it food, it salivates. Now, if you look at, if you were to like graph like how that happens, the more times you like ring the bell with the food, like the faster the response rate will be when the bell will, you know, stimulate the salivation. And then there's this like extinction effect, which is like, how many times do you have to ring the bell without food until the dog stops salivating? So basically what we need to do is we need to do a bit of an extinction effect with our own behavior. The extinction effect that we need to create is our need to give the advice. So we need to give the advice, then we get a stimulus from them, which is, okay. So that's a no. So that's our like our stimulus, and how quickly is our body going to respond in allowing us to let go of the advice? So that's what we have to condition in ourselves. That does not happen instantaneously. That does not happen after 2 or 3 tries. That happens after like 8 tries. So if at any point in time you find yourself trying motivational interviewing things and saying, well, that didn't work for me, then that is step 1 of 8 in different extinction processes. So if you can see that failure as, I'm 12% there, I just need another 7 and I'm there. And maybe if I journal on this, maybe I don't even need eight iterations. Maybe I can get away with 5 if I journal it, which is why we've got journaling exercises to try to abbreviate those. So you might even be 20% there already. Okay, so let's actually go to, so we're back in, everyone's back. So we were gonna do affirmations. So affirmations is our next most important utterance. So we looked at reflections. There's a lot of different types of reflections, but double-sided reflection, if you can do that, then you can do all of them, because then you basically just do the second part without the first part. And you're always like, yeah. So now let's do affirmation. We might double back on a couple other types of reflection, because it's just such an important part of the utterances. But all right, so let's draw a new horizontal spectrum. And this one is going to be for affirmation. Maybe we can title this like the affirmational spectrum, something like that. Now on the right-hand side, we're going to have affirmation. And on the left-hand side, we're going to have the word praise. Okay, so I'm going to do a few different examples of, so praise on the left and affirmation on the right. So this is the spectrum that we're going to be looking at. So on the right-hand side, we have a declarative statement of an observed, stated, or intuited skill. Okay, so observed, stated, or intuited skill. Now on the left, we have something that's like more of like a compliment. And that's not where we want to be. We want to be on the right-hand side. Further over to the right is motivational interviewing. If we find ourselves on the left-hand side, what we are doing is not motivational interviewing. Okay, so I'm going to give a few different examples. As I say these, I want you to kind of just point at your spectrum or whatever, like with a finger or something like that, and just, you know, kind of identify where are we at on this praise spectrum. And then also think about like how this would make you feel. So I'm just going to offer a few different things here. Louisa, that's a really great blonde color for you.
That's very kind.
Yeah, okay, so we're hearing this on the left-hand side, right? It's very clearly there. Why don't we just do
I think as a woman as well, I'm ultra sensitive to hearing that kind of physical praise, especially if you're in a professional situation. You just don't want it.
Yeah, it almost feels like levels of uncomfortable, or like, you know, feelings of awkwardness, or like it feels almost like there's no response to it sometimes. Like what do I say? It's like, you know, if I was like a whole on narcissistic, you know, I could be like, yeah, obsolescences, you know. You know,
I mean, if we were just a couple of mates in the pub, you know, yeah, no problem. Or tell me about my hair. But if you're in a, you know, you're trying to have like a business meeting or something, you just don't want it.
Yeah.
Can I just check the scale? Because you said that's over on the left-hand side. I've got affirmation written on the left and praise on the right. So.
Oh, yeah. So this is the praise side. So I'll just say praise side and affirmation side, because maybe different people set up their scales in different ways.
Well, it may just be me that's wrong.
Oh, no, you're right. You know, you set it up. It's your scale. It's your spectrum. You do with it what you want. Okay. So, Maddie, I see like a deep sort of like participation and joyfulness and desire to kind of like just bring your whole self into an experience. Okay, and so I'm just going to rapid fire a few off. So just place them where you think they go. Bridget, you are maybe a little bit more on the introverted scale, but you know that that is a little bit of a strength because you're very thoughtful and you're prepared when you need to be. Wolfram, you're a structural thinker. You can see and build a plan in your mind, and you know that the plan doesn't go exactly according to plan, But that's why the plan was there, because you're more ready for whatever comes because you actually made the plan. Okay, so most of those that I just shared were very much on the affirmational side. I'm sure you were able to hear that. And you may even be wondering, like, how could I even like share those types of things? I mean, do I know for a fact that they're right? I don't know for a fact that they're right. My intuition and my gut was telling me with different things that I've observed. I would say, who is a type of person like Bridget? And with what I've observed of Bridget, what do I think she might bring to something, and to make a guess about who she is as a character and the strengths that she brings. And I just make sort of a hypothesis, and I shoot from the hip with that. Now, the thing is that's with literally just looking at body language and almost no interaction. And those were like deep human values, like some of the strongest, things that people might bring. So, so that, what that does is it draws out a feeling of warmth and skillfulness, where like we're being validated for the skills that we actually have. And when we do that, it actually strengthens our ability, or well, the audience's ability to like basically take on any kind of new task. They are going to be more confident to take that on. Maddie, would you like to share? I saw you unmuted, so I didn't know if you wanted to share. Oh, okay. Okay, so why don't we do a little bit of affirmation practice right now? Okay, so I'm thinking about whether we want to do this in breakout rooms or not. Normally I like to do breakout sessions, but I think, geez, I've so many ambitious goals for us today. I kind of want to just do them here in this session. Okay, so what I want us to do is let's actually do this not in breakout rooms. So I want you to look at some, oh yes, go ahead, Christian.
I'm a bit lost in what situation you would use this type of
so what this is, okay, so let's take, for example, the conversation that we had between Robert Smith and you. I'm going to offer an affirmation to Robert Smith. So Robert, it sounds like you've actually been really thoughtful, and it seems like really good that you're here actually, because you've been looking strategically about like the economic welfare of, your constituency, of us, and also looking at, like the environmental side, and like not just, pushing something that could actually be, bad ultimately for our community, not only environmentally, but, I mean, if there is bad things that happen with the water and the health effects that come through that, it could actually turn into sort of financial difficulties. So I just wanted to really validate and show my appreciation for the fact that you've demonstrated that thoughtfulness. Okay, so there I'm validating his thoughtfulness. When we're doing it in this scenario, what we're doing is we want to picture them as the best person that they could be, the most morally high-grounded person that we can perceive them to be. Put a halo on their head. And if you can get yourself to believe it, then you can send it back that way, and you can send it back genuinely, and that's going to help them to be more moral. You're going to help to reinforce their moral fortitude, because of course they want to do the right thing. And it's going to be other pressures that might get them to maybe not do the right thing. So by reinforcing who they are at their deepest level, their skillfulness, their thoughtfulness, their moral fortitude, then that's going to help them to make the right decision. And maybe the right decision is that they should be drilling, but whatever, like it has, like it's their decision anyway. We don't get to decide for them, but by reinforcing their moral fortitude, we're empowering them to at least make the decision that they're going to be making based on like what's right, instead of, you know, this company pays, you know, for us to get reelected.
Isn't that also dangerous, that it can backfire if they feel well that you're exaggerating, or if they feel this is they think it's not genuine? That's what I'm afraid of.
Yeah, and so that's where we have to truly believe it ourselves, where we have to actually channel that genuineness. Because if, and you're 100% right, if it's not genuine, then backfire it will. Because if it comes through disingenuous, then like that's bad. Like, oh yeah, so you're really thoughtful, and you just want to like do the, you know, the environmental thing because like, you know that you really need to do the right thing, you know, and then it's just, it comes through more like an order there. It's like I was saying, oh, thank you for being thoughtful, but it was just sort of like, you're going to be thoughtful, aren't you? So it's like there was disingenuousness. The tone didn't communicate the right thing. So if that's where like I can't teach genuineness, right? Like all I can do is I can help you to like get into the emotional band of like non-judgmental and you know, curious and empathic. And if you're bringing that, that's going to help you to actually, excuse me, keep that right tone in your utterances. Okay, so let's actually try a few instances. So the first thing that I'd like you to do is I'd like everybody to write down an affirmation of me in this case. We're not going to say any of these out loud because I'm not narcissistic, but you all know me to a certain level. So just write an affirmation of something that you've observed. So an observed skill or intuited skill or stated skill. And you want it to be a declarative statement. Okay, now I'd like everybody to go on mute. And I want you to actually practice saying this. So literally say it out loud. We're talking to ourselves now, but I want you to say this out loud as though you're saying it to me, but everybody on mute. So say your declarative statement. When you say it, don't do the uptone at the end. So you're really good at that? So that's a question. We don't want a question. Declarative statement, level tone at the end. And go. Okay, so let's try again. We're going to do one more example. So I want you to picture somebody that you know very well in your life. Maybe family member, friend. Choose this person. Now I want you to close your eyes and picture this person. Picture this person and then think about what makes them at their strongest. What makes them the best person that they are? Now look at that at a deeper level and how they value that themselves. How do they perceive the strength that you're perceiving? What does that strength look like to them? Now I'd like you to write that affirmation down. Affirm that person for that strength. Now, let's do one more run through of actually saying this out loud to our muted microphones. We're going to actually affirm this person. We're sending that out into the ether. This person's going to get this affirmation from us. And we have to say it in our proper tone. We're actually having this conversation with them. We're going to actually say this to this person that we know. And begin. Okay, so that's affirmations. That's what we have to do. And when we do that, all we have to do is just picture how that feels for the other person and picture the warmth and confidence that they feel after hearing that message of their own skillfulness, and realize that we have also scientifically just done one of the most important things that we can do to actually empower them to be able to make a change. Affirmations serve a different purpose than reflections. Affirmations help people feel capable. Even if the affirmation is not related to the change target directly, it doesn't have to be. You could say, you're a good mom. That right there is an affirmation. It's very simple, but it works. And if you say that to somebody, it's sort of like a supercharged breakfast that they've just had. And they're just sort of like, yeah, I am a good mom and I can like do anything. And look at what I've done in my life and the obstacles that I have overcome. Oh my goodness. That's what that means. And that's the thought. And when you say that to them, they're just like, if I'm a mom, I can do anything. And, you know, can't you? Like, so, so that's what we're doing with affirmation. So now we've got 8 minutes left. So, and I didn't know that we would have this. So I'm really glad because I want to bring us back to reflections. And I want us to actually just do a little bit of, well, we can do a little bit of Q&A, but I also want us to just take a moment to realize that there's other types of reflections out there, and we don't always just have to reflect words. Our intuition is very, very important here. So we can also reflect back silence. We can also reflect back emotion and tone. So I'm going to try a reflection that is genuine and how I actually was feeling about it. And who knows, I'm not sure whether it actually was right or not. But Christian, when we had our back and forth before about the like me giving the advice and you going in the fast cow direction, I don't know whether you were actually like you know, this unfocused on that or this focused on fast cows, but I did feel a little bit like you were trying to be the best audience member that you could be, and you were just, you know, trying to help by going along and helping create an example. It was more of a role play than a real play. It was less Christian than who Christian needed to be in the workshop in that moment.
And you appreciate that role in
I did actually. I mean, I appreciated it very much. So, but so then, okay, so this right here was a reflection of something that wasn't stated. We never talked about that. We never talked about the fact that you just willingly accepted and, you know, did a bit of a role play kind of thing, just to create an experience for everybody. So, but that right there is a reflection of something unstated.
Mm.
We could do a reflection of silence. Let's see, what's a good example? You go in with a session and you're sort of like, oh, you know, oh, thank you for having us, you know, Mr. Smith. Oh, yeah, yeah, good to be here. And there's sort of an awkward silence at the start of your meeting. So you could reflect back that. So how might you reflect something like that? Let's actually practice this. So, I mean, ultimately, like, not ultimately. Give me a second, channel the words. There's been silence. I have to get myself back into my band of emotions. So I'm judging by your silence that you might not even necessarily be sure of what we want to talk about today. So maybe we could just, get started with, and I can share about a few things that that we were hoping to talk about. How is that? Yeah, that sounds okay. So in this case, we're not sort of like ignoring the silence, so letting it be awkward. We're just allowing it to exist. And then we're going to say, okay, so maybe you don't know what we're going to bring, or you don't know what to expect. Something like that. So we're going to bring this back. And we can also reflect an emotional state. This is really upsetting for you. So like, for example, this happened in a recent tweet where I actually ended up, after this scenario, I ended up just quitting Twitter forever, even though my account still exists, where I had a one-sided interaction, and that was part of the thing that was frustrating, with Elon Musk. And Elon Musk made a transphobic statement that was very, very, like, just not okay with me. So then I used this as an example in a previous MI training session. And then the person was interviewing me, and they're like, this was really upsetting for you. And when that happened, it was an unlocking. It allowed me to feel and work through the emotion and to say, yes, it was upsetting. It wasn't okay. It wasn't okay for somebody with, millions of Twitter followers to make a transphobic statement like that is going to lead to, there might be people who are in the trans community that might end up being injured as a result of, if that hadn't happened, those people might have never been attacked. Like, that's the result of that statement. So yes, I am upset. And so then that I can start to work through that and say, well, what's next? It's like, so what do we want to do with this feeling of upset? How are we going to resolve this? So reflecting an emotion. Okay, so I wanted to just go through and just kind of like list those off, that those are things that we can also reflect. And so we're at 5. So if people need to fly, they can. You do have the homework. So let me just give you actually, before you fly, let me actually just get the link here to the homework. Where are you? Here you are. Okay. I'm going to share 2 links. Okay, so there's 2 links. One is the homework assignment, and one is something that can be used in place of interpersonal interaction if you're having trouble like locating the right scenario that you feel comfortable with doing your homework assignment on. That is a video with all sorts of opportunities for you to practice doing your homework assignment. So maybe I should actually. It's a continuation of the listening and utterances homework. So basically, the observe and reflecting nonverbals and the emphasize autonomy are also down there at the bottom of the homework assignment. And hopefully that'll be some good journaling practice. Once again, if anybody wants to email me with your homework assignments afterwards, then please feel free. I love to read what people write in your journal, and like the reflections and different experiences that you have as you go through. So now if people need to fly, and if you want to hang out and just chit chat, and because I know we didn't do Q&A, then happy to hang out.